Bonjour à tous. Aujourd'hui, le dimanche, ici, c'est le jour, le premier, euh, la saison, le roman. Félicitations et le nouvel plan. Euh, et j'espère à tout avoir bien l'année. Merci beaucoup. So, meanwhile, we want to say expression of the congratulations and felicitation to the new year and the first day of Le Péréminé, new season spring. Let me would like continue before opening of the garden center and the new home garden by coming April, share and to learn first of all myself and get a motivation and aspiration by talking and with the people, with my fellow citizen Canadian, and to remind myself and to learn more myself, and then might be useful for you if you are interested to follow me. Not always, so follow me is not always physically, you have to a little bit follow on the what I'm thinking, right? So I just read some books, horticulture, floriculture, annual, ornamental gardening. So let me start quickly. That is related to the what is important for initial and provincial as a first step to start as a preliminary start for the home garden and indoor garden or outdoor, which is important. First of all, infrastructure is very important in any item. Like for example, you want to have a kids. The kids from 1 year until 7 years, again from 7 years until 15 years, is a vital time. Is a fundamental infrastructure for any people who want to be happy, especially girls, because they're emotional, they want to have a baby. So training and the boys as well, I mean husband as well, have to understand after 15 years old is it so easy. I mean, if you train the good like a tree, if you train good, so it goes up. I mean, because you cannot control, I mean, your kids after 14, 16, 17 go to the college and far from you, and even you want to tell him or her he doing or her doing her or his attitude. So the kids is take a photo of what you're doing until 15 years. If you did well, he's learning by function, by action. It's not like you say to the kids, you read the books, but you want to sleeping or you want to watch the movie. So I mean, do homework altogether. So it's difficult. So it's better like a Swedish or a Scandinavian, they prefer not too many population, so that's okay. So machine is doing, we don't need too many people, right? Because any person who he was borning or he born, it means one universe is born, because this is a virtue of the humanity mind, too much. So we have to understand what we want to do. uh, so fundamental, if we want to talk fundamental, is not for even in society we are starting to the nature, fundamental in a horticulture and botany, and even in a agriculture, agronomy. More horticulture is related to the media, to the soil. So based on what the soil has and based on what the weather has, you have to select your crop. And that's why we have, for example, cereal as a barley and wheat in Saskatchewan, but we don't have these crops in, for example, Florida, right? The weather doesn't like that because it's different. That is for temperate zone, and it doesn't like the hot humidity weather. Secondly, soil is tax. What the soil, for example, azalea is likes one flower is usually is flowering right now. If they keep up in the greenhouse, and it's a time they need pH 3-4. So the usual we're using the not only peat moss, uh, but sometimes we add some rotted compost of the tea, or some has a low pH. Therefore, infrastructure of the horticulture is so important, and one of the main infrastructure is the media and soil. So we have to know the soil, and theoretical and after practical to apply, uh, and then we are not very worried like a kids after 15 16 if you have a good terrain, because when the tree has a good soil, good weather, he has a interior physiological defense versus pathology, insect, fungi, disease, bacteria, and stress of environment, because it has a good stout and a good figure, can be very resistant and resilient to the stress of the environment for drought, or sometimes overwatering, or any bad condition. So what we have to know about the soil? First of all, this is I wrote as my cover letter, or as my assignment or something. First of all, I'm a farmer or worker in the world. In any tenure at the business, I would like to work with colleague in the stock assortment and cleaning or tied up work environment, transplanting, preparation of the media, mixed soil, irrigation, fertilizing, set up the shade mesh as a curtain in a hot sunny day of summer, and I help the customer for transplanting. What is important for soil is related to the conceptual understanding of the soil, which is 2 points: the physical part of the soil and the chemical part of the soil. Physical part of the soil, which we have to understand, is the triangle of the soil is sand, 0.002 millimeters until 2 millimeters to 0.002, between 0.02 0.02 0.02 to 0.002 is silt, and less than that is called clay, which is very tiny. Under microscope you have to see, and has a clay, and the source of the all ions, minerals, like for example nitrogen is a nitrate, NO3 minus 2, like a nitric acid, nitric, or phosphorus is a PO4 minus 2, because P has a 3 as a metal, as a 3 capacity positive. Oxygen is minus 2, so like H3PO4, so acid phosphoric, right? But which is you can find in the clay is not this one. PO4 minus 3 and the hydrogen plus, or hydroxide, OH minus. So all is ionized material compound inside of the clay. But the clay is important, but is not important. I mean, it's bad sometimes, because if the proportion of the sand and silt not to be balanced by the clay, you have a very heavy clay soil, and it's not good for agriculture because you don't have a good aeration or doesn't have a good drainage, and you need the clay construction of your media to be changed. So they add the sand or take it out the whole clay soil and bring the new um, sandy loam, or you have to mix with the other good like a loamy sandy loam clay from other side. Is possible. When I say loam it means percentage of the clay is mixed with the silt, and sand. When they mixing together, the new combination is not anymore sand or silt or clay, is called loam. That's why in triangle of the soil science they call sandy clay, or they call loomy clay, or they say sandy loomy, or say loomy sandy. So all is depend of the percentage. I mean, one of the very sandy loam has a 40% sand, I think 60% silt, no, 40% sand, 35% silt, and rest, for example, 10% is clay, something like this. So it's called sandy loam. So this is a structure of the soil which is important, especially for horticulture and ornamental trees and the shrubs, and mainly herbaceous as annual, biennial, and perennials. We need to have a good structure of the soil, and soil have to be good drainage but moisty. What does it mean? Wet but good drainage. It means the soil always doesn't have any problem for keeping the drainage of the water, but has a capacity of holding the water. So you see the getting media in the backyard, and you see is a very pulverized in your hand, and when you pushing your hands, and you see the in the your topsoil is dripping the water. When you take it put it out, and touching your topsoil, it says okay, it's a powder and nothing water. So it means is dry, but it's not dry. It's wet, moisture. But this is ideal because this topsoil has a good drainage, but always moisty. What we have to do, your median topsoil for 3, 4, 5 until even some tree and shrubs, depend of the canopy of the roots, 6 inch or 10 inch, or might be 1 feet or 1.5 or 2 feet, has a good. You have to have a good compost, and mix the compost with your construction, like a manure, like a sheep or cow manure, beside the leaf molds, beside the compost of the factory, to mix all together this organic material and humus with the physical, the soil. They make a high capacity of the soil. It's called in soil science CEC, means capacity exchange cations. So they make and after they make a good holding of the water. But what is the other point is very important. The porous inside of your soil is always is a 50%. You have a air circulation inside your air. It means you have a good drainage. Your media has a compost. 5% to 7% is organic material, humus, is that's enough, is ideal. Rest is physical particles of the clay, silt, and the sand. And you see the porous inside is a 50% ideal soil. If you have a heavy clay, you doesn't have a 50% air, 10% air. That's not good. You have to have at least 50% porous inside between the particles. So air circulation, it make a exchange between the oxygen and CO2, because roots is take oxygen from the porous inside of the media for its respiration. which is happening in the mitochondria of the cells, and give it back the CO2 to the soil. And always the tiny microscopic roots, they absorb the water between the clays of the clay. So if you thinking, you understand that is one is a society, like a society, like a big city, like for example 10 million people living in New York. The soil is like that. I mean, the balance between all the physical particles and the organism, billions, billions of the bacteria and the fungi and microorganisms, they working inside of the particles and be decomposed, and this is natural. That's why I don't like too much chemical fertilizer on a backyard or even front yard. Container is different. Container pot, this is a control environment like a greenhouse. You have a rock wool, so you're using all the chemical material, I mean, and after dispose the whole the systems. But natural media like a backyard or front yard, as much as you can, you have to use the organic and make it, this society to be stabilized, like our green gas, and like not the phenomena of the global warming, right? So this is the same, I mean, because any chemical when it's coming, the bacteria, they make a reaction we cannot see in a long term, long plan. After 10 years, 20 years, you're using all the time the chemical NPK 1010, especially some chemical is not a 1 to 3 NPK, or a microorganism, or like a calcium, or like a phosphorus, or like a magnesium, right? Or like a sulfur, or like micro elements. You're using chemicals, sometimes using 20 20 20, 30 10 10 at too many percentage, and this when it goes inside the soil, maybe the plant's happy for first year, but in the long term your microorganism has a bad reaction, and you destroy your society in the soil if you know what's the role of the microorganism inside of your media and topsoil. So therefore, as much as we can, we use the compost. I mean, leaf mold. I mean, this country is not a desert. I mean, we have a huge, forest. If we have an organization, we have a private, company. They make a production of the compost. I mean, if the bag is expensive, we have a bulk compost factory, garden center. They're selling the compost. Good topsoil, good, mixed soil, and the manure, is a manure, sheep or cow manure is good, and leaf mold or compost, as much as we can, as much as we can, for a yard, for land, for a for a bed, raised bed, for a raised bed for a vegetable, as much as we can, for open and outdoor, is possible. Even the container and indoor, greenhouse, if we can, as much as for vegetable and organic we use, is super, Okay, now just we talk about the soil a little bit, and step by step we continue.